Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Ali. I'm an OBGYN, and in today's video I'm going to talk about how we place and remove IUDs in the office. In case you missed it, I did film a previous video explaining 5 things that I think everyone should know before deciding that they want an IUD. I'm going to leave it linked down below because I think it's full of so much great information. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you guys find these videos helpful, I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's get started. All right, in this first part of the video, I'm going to show you and explain all the different equipment, instruments that we use while we place the IUD. I have them all here. So let's go through this first and then I'll demonstrate how we place it. This first item here, this is what's called a speculum. A lot of women refers to this as the duckbills because it opens up like this. And this is the device that we place vaginally to help us look at your cervix. The second instrument that we use here is a uterine sound, and let me take it out of its package. Ugh. Obviously this is going to be all sterile, but this is a uterine sound. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you'll be able to tell on the camera, but there's actually little notches and numbers on this little device, and we use this to measure the length of your uterus. So I will explain how we use this in the demonstration part. Last but not least, we have the IUD. This is the sterile packaging it comes in. And here is the device right here. So let's move on to the demonstration part. So this little instrument right here is going to help me demonstrate exactly how we place the Mirena. This little diagram here, it's showing the uterus right here, 2 fallopian tubes that come off on this side, and then cervix right here, down here, which is where we would do the insertion. So I'm gonna walk you as if you were to come to the appointment to get your IUD placed. You come to the office, you get checked in with an MA or a nurse, take your vital signs. You might need to sign a consent form saying that you agree to getting the IUD. They go over any sort of risks and benefits and stuff like that. Now when you're ready for placement, just like anytime you have to do a pelvic exam, we do have your feet up in those stirrups or the fancy footrests, and then we get started. So the first part of the exam actually consists of what's called a bimanual exam. This is an exam where us as physicians can check your uterus to see what orientation it's in. So this exam is done with one finger in the vagina and the other finger kind of on your lower abdomen. During this exam, we're able to feel which way your uterus is tilted. Some women it tilts towards the back, which is okay, and some women it tilts to the front. Again, okay. During the exam, we can also check your ovaries and make sure there's no masses or anything abnormal that we feel. So now the next part of the exam involves the speculum. As I mentioned earlier, this is a device that's placed vaginally to help us look at the cervix. So this gets placed inside of the vagina. We can open it up to help us really isolate the cervix, which would be the bottom part of your uterus, which is what we actually see while we're doing the exam. All right, now that the speculum is in place, we can see your cervix, it's time to clean the surface of your cervix. We do this using these little, I call them giant Q-tips, but it's just a giant swab. We can dip it in some solution, usually betadine, and that's used to clean the cervix. We place it through the speculum, we get to your cervix, and we're able to just clean off the surface of the cervix. Now, this part of the exam, obviously all pelvic exams are going to be uncomfortable, but this should not be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable, but again, it should not be painful. If you're feeling any pain, please let us know. Now that your cervix is clean, we can move on to the next part of the exam, which is using the uterine sound to measure the length of your uterus. Now I'm going to use this little model here to explain that. Now, picture your cervix or the opening of the uterus at the bottom part here. We can use this device and we can feed it through until we reach the top of the uterus, which for us, we feel resistance because we reach the top of the uterus. We can mark it because this has numbers on it, and this measures 7, which means this uterus measures 7 centimeters. Now I will admit that this part of the exam, having that sensation of this going through will be crampy. It shouldn't be any sharpshooting pain or anything like that, but it will cause cramps. I describe them as menstrual cramps. Now that we know how long the uterus measures, we can then move on to placing the IUD. So typically our nurse will open the IUD for us. This again is done sterilely. So now we have the IUD and they come just like this. By pushing up on this button, it hides the little arms of the IUD, so now this is all we have. Remember how we measured the length of your uterus? On the actual IUD device, there's numbers as well and a little stopper. So that uterus measured 7, so I can move this little stopper to the number 7. Now it's time for placement of the IUD. So again, going back to the little model, cervix is down here. I know that your uterus measures 7, my stopper is at the 7. I place the IUD through the cervix. It hits the top of the uterus. I pull back just a little bit and then I release this button here and the IUD falls into place. The little arms open. I then count to 10 seconds. Then I can kind of push up on the uterus so that it's flush with the top of the uterus. And then I remove the device. As you can see in the model here, the IUD is inside of the uterus and there's strings coming from the outside. The next part of the exam is to trim the strings. We usually leave the strings about 2 centimeters long, so we get some scissors, cut them, and we're done. Again, the process of getting the IUD placed should not be any sort of sharp shooting pain, but it is uncomfortable and it can cause cramping as that device is going through. Usually it's safe to take some Advil, some ibuprofen before your exam, and usually in most offices they can offer you some ibuprofen for the cramping after the exam. Make sure you talk to your provider to see what you should do. Question I get all the time, what about the strings? Will my partner feel them? Will I feel them? Etc. I usually have all of my patients actually feel the strings. I wish you could feel it through the camera. They are extremely thin. It almost feels like 2 pieces of hair. So you grab just 2 pieces of your own hair and kind of rub them together. That's the consistency of the strings. So they're very, very thin. It's not anything where your partner will feel them. You can feel for them yourself just to do some checks if you want to. Just knowing what they feel like, again, very thin, almost like hair. So getting an IUD placed, honestly, is a procedure that doesn't take very long. Maybe a couple minutes and it's done. Okay, now let's talk about removal. So getting the IUD removed goes through similar steps as placement. You still use the speculum so that we can see your cervix. Now, when we see your cervix, we'll locate it and we should be able to see the strings. As soon as we find the strings, we get a little grasper. We grab the strings and we just pull them out. And there it is, the IUD is out. Getting the IUD removed is also a lot faster than getting it placed. And like I mentioned, typically a lot less crampy. All right, you guys, that brings us to the end of the video. I hope you learned something new today. I hope you all found this beneficial, knowing how we place them, how we remove the IUDs. And again, if you have any more questions, make sure to also watch my previous video where I explain those 5 things that everyone should know. All right, guys, thank you so much for spending time with me, for supporting me, for subscribing to the channel. All of that means so much to me. If you really found this beneficial, I would love it if you gave me a thumbs up. Make sure you're following me on all social media. It's AliRodMD on Instagram and on TikTok. Make sure to always check out my blog too, because I still post regularly on there, and all of my posts are gonna be in Spanish and in English. I will leave everything linked down below. All right, guys, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you learned something new today, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.